Welcome to Local Giving's webinar for charities and community groups in Wales who want to look at the benefits and the barriers of crowdfunding. So charities today face many general difficulties and challenges as well before you even consider crowdfunding. So just to look at a couple of those first. Obviously, everyone lacks time. A lot of organisations lack digital skills and also don't have the data they need to get started. 78% of groups expect to see an increase in the demand on their services, yet they face massive cuts, and 76% have seen a reduction in staff. So only 48% of charities feel confident they'll be operating by 2021. And that was in Local Giving's third sector sustainability report in 2017. So lots of concerning stuff there. Before we launch into crowdfunding, I just wanted to talk about online fundraising and the kind of difference or similarity in terms. So online fundraising or digital fundraising refers to activity where the money is collected digitally. So that can be through the internet, it could be through mobile, and it should be part of a larger program of fundraising activity. So it'd be alongside things such as grants and corporate sponsorship as well. Online fundraising is really worth people looking into. This information will be familiar to a lot of you, and shortly we'll go on to information that's new content. But 2.4 billion is now being donated online annually in the UK, which is a quarter of all donations. And because the internet is used so heavily by adults now, and such high percentages of every age group are donating online, it's really worth looking into and having the means for people to interact with you and support you online. The average online donation is double that of an offline donation. So whilst people might put spare change in a donation bucket, they'll always round up to the nearest £1 or £5 when they're donating online. It's really efficient in terms of time resource and thanking donors. Its main benefit is that it's unrestricted income. So you've got money coming in that's really flexible, can go to where you need it most, and people are supporting your work as a whole generally. And it really helps raise awareness of your cause and goes hand in hand with building networks and developing an online presence. As you can see by the stats here, a lot of people prefer to give online, very high percentages, all above 50% for every age group. The majority of them prefer to be reached by social media and email. So it's really important that you both offer online donation facilities and also that you promote them online as well, because it's how you're likely to reach networks there. So crowdfunding and online fundraising are generally interchangeable terms. Essentially, crowdfunding specifically refers to where you're getting many people or a crowd to donate lots of small amounts towards one very specific target for something specific to happen. So on Local Giving, we largely call crowdfunding an appeal or a campaign, but they are one and the same as a whole. Crowdfunding is the common term that is used at this particular time. But they refer to essentially getting lots of individuals to support one focused element of your work. So there are multiple types of crowdfunding campaigns. They usually break into two categories of where you get all or nothing of your target. So for example, if you're trying to raise £5,000 and you only raise £4,000, then the donors are refunded. And to be honest, it's high risk that, because you're putting time into it and you're not guaranteed that you're getting the donations as they're coming into. High risk for you, low risk for the donor. The most common form of crowdfunding that is worth looking at is flexible crowdfunding, where you keep what you raise. So just as on Local Giving, you receive the donations as and when they're coming in. All your hard work is rewarded as you're going. And it doesn't matter if you're 50 quid short of your target, you've got the donations that you've worked hard to get. And on the whole, donors that want to support you, will do that even if you're a little bit short of your target as well. That also comes into play with the right-hand side of the slide here. So there are different types of crowdfunding. The one that we'll be talking about today and the one that you'll have most to do with is donation crowdfunding. So where someone gives a donation to make something happen, they're not specifically getting anything back in return for that donation. There are other types of crowdfunding where people do get things back. So there's reward crowdfunding. I'm sure you've seen sites that allow you to offer prizes or experiences or a taster of what it is they're funding. So a reward for the donor in return for their gift. There's crowdfunded lending, where people can essentially put up the money that you need to get something started, and then you pay them back. So it's a win for you because it's interest free. They've made something happen, but eventually at the end of the day, it's not cost them anything. So you can do crowdfunded lending. The other sort of crowdfunding is equity crowdfunding, where there is a return on investment. You're essentially giving people some profit and some financial benefit back for what they're doing. Donation crowdfunding is the one that's most worth your time because you haven't got to give anything in return. And to be honest, people that really want to support you are going to be doing it because they want that thing to happen. And so it's not just going to be about the reward for what they're doing. And they're really worthwhile people that you want in your network as well. Just a reminder for what a crowdfunder page looks like. So we would call these appeal pages on Local Giving. They are essentially a page with a target bar. A crowdfunder page will have a target and it will show how far you're progressing towards that target. The best crowdfunders will have videos that sum up what you're doing or show what you're looking to develop there as well. And they will talk about a specific ask for a specific need and why you need that specific target. It's all about encouraging lots of small amounts of donations, and it's really about building a sense of urgency. You know, we've got 1 month to do this, 3 months to do this. We've got a very limited time to solve this problem. There's lots of research concerning me that shows that the social good sector is not engaging with crowdfunding. Lots of other sectors are, but crowdfunding only equates to 0.5% of giving currently in the UK. And, you know, that's concerning when we look at the benefits as well. So Nesta and the University of Cambridge surveyed 450 organisations to explore why this is. They were particularly concerned when the sector is facing so many funding cuts, and there's a lot of criticism anyway about intrusive forms of fundraising, such as face-to-face, you know, knocking on doors, mail, cold phone calls, all those sorts of things. That when they're being criticised, surely crowdfunding is, you know, a really risk-free, safe, you know, fruitful way to go as well. The main barriers that they found to organisations getting involved with this were that 2 out of 3 did not have the knowledge, the skills, or the capacity for crowdfunding. 90% of organisations had heard of it, but only 15% had used it. So in that sense, the knowledge and awareness is there, but it's not been actioned. And so those barriers are obviously, you know, very significant. And they found that more could be done to develop practice guides and toolkits tailored to charities and community groups to make sure that they know what they're doing, and making sure that they know those guides exist as well, which is exactly what Local Giving is trying to do. In Local Giving's own reports, we've seen that only 18% of organisations worldwide feel that they have the skills necessary for running crowdfunding campaigns, compared to 29% of groups UK-wide. So there's a larger need in Wales, which is why we've been developing our Wales programme. The report also indicated that 93% of groups in Wales want help with online fundraising. So it's something they're aware of. It's something that they want support to engage in. And 59% need support with social media, and 61% need support with digital marketing. So in that sense, those things are really key to be able to make the most of crowdfunding. So there's multiple areas that need addressing to ensure that crowdfunding is as successful as possible. There was also a YouGov survey recently with 2,500 respondents that were looking at why organisations aren't providing the option of donating through a crowdfunder, because they found that young people are 37% more likely to donate than those over 55s, but by far their preference is to donate through a crowdfunding platform. So that means that you need to have the means for people to donate to you online. And it means as an organisation, you need to be looking at doing crowdfunders or appeals regularly, in the sense of you're choosing one element of your work to really focus on and to specifically raise funds against, rather than just asking for donations directly to your organisation as a whole. But you do really specific, focused fundraising to make something happen, be that an existing part of your work or a new part of your work. Crowdfunding campaigns raise 70% more than fundraisers. So in that sense, you know, you're going to be raising more money as well. And fundraisers are great. Fundraisers are really healthy for your organization. So for crowdfunders to raise 70% more than that is really good. 64% of organizations wouldn't have had funding without crowdfunding. So there's lots of really good work that just wouldn't have happened without this extra form of income. And similarly, your organizations could benefit in the same way. 27% of crowdfunded supporters also went on to volunteer for that project. So you're engaging supporters for the long term. They're helping you out in many other ways. And 90% promoted the project they supported via social media. So your donors are also helping you build your network, build awareness, and probably attracting new donors for you as well. As crowdfunding raises money for specific projects, run causes as a whole, it's really transparent around where the money's going to as well. It's really clear, right? We need £6,000 for this. This is what it's going to achieve. People, are able to put their trust in that because it's really clear what it is that you're doing with every donation then. Crowdfunding also allows you to experiment in addressing social challenges. You might come up with an idea for addressing a problem or a new project, and then if the crowd doesn't respond, as it were, then you know that people aren't keen on that as a solution. Whereas if people go above and beyond to support it, then you know that that's a solution that people appreciate, as a good way of solving something then as well. It reduces the cost of failure in terms of, essentially it's just time that's required for crowdfunding. So you can play around and find out what works best as well. There's two main ways of how you approach a crowdfunder. One is reactively. So there'll always be unpredicted opportunities or spontaneous crises or things like that, such as the roof's fallen in, or there's something really valuable in the current news at the moment that we could tag onto, or there's a flood, anything that's unpredictable. You might then distribute jobs and action it straight away and raise money alongside that. But most crowdfunding, and it should be aimed to be proactive. So you specifically develop an idea in terms of what do we need to raise money for first? How do we go about it? How do we plan it? Do the preparation. Everyone puts their time in during the campaign as you've planned, and then you do the follow-up afterwards as well. So most crowdfunders will look like that, and we'll look at those different steps in more detail now as well. So you really need to be starting off by looking at the target. So that this is an illustration of how you can look at the target, you can plan out what you're doing, and then you can execute it then as a campaign. Choosing the right target is really important. It's really key to look at what you've raised in the past. I usually encourage groups to start with a £500 to £5,000 target. Any less than that is not worth your time. Any more than that, then you can set difficulties for yourself for your very first crowdfunder. The main logic behind that is if someone can only afford to give you £5 and you set this 20 grand target, then you're immediately isolating people from feeling that their money's going to make any difference and they're not going to donate. And crowdfunding is all about getting as many people to give small amounts as possible. So you need to make that accessible and realistic for them. It's worth breaking your target into, realistic goals as well, in terms of, right, in a month we could raise this, or these have been our average donation sizes in the past. So I know that if I'm setting a target of £5,000, this is how many donors are going to be supporting me, or I'm going to be expecting to support me. And you can work out whether that's realistic for you or not. There is also something that a number of you will be familiar with, which is the 70-30 rule, or the 30% rule, which is that pretty much if you can raise the first third of your target, then you are likely to get the whole way. And the logic of that is that if I'm someone who's not supported you before and I go onto your campaign page and see that it says £0 raised or £20 raised, it's not very encouraging that you're going to get the whole way. So as in that first image there, it's going to put me off when you've done the hard work of getting me there. Whereas in the second image, if I go on that, it looks great, you're on the way, I'm going to be supporting that, I'm not put off in any way. There are a couple of ways that you can help yourself along with that. One of those is by doing a soft launch and getting those in your network to support you from the first week. You can essentially say to people, no pressure at all, but if you had in mind that you're going to support us anyway, it'd be so helpful if you could support us this week, because next week we're going to start public promotion, share it with our wider network, do social media. And if new donors can see that we've already raised the first few £100 together, then it's going to be really helpful and encouraging for new donors then. And you can share that message with staff, volunteers, trustees, committees, past volunteers and past donors as well. And they can help you get started off. The other thing to consider is offline donations. If you've got a grant towards the same thing, or if you have received cash recently from a donor, you can always log those donations as an offline donation, and it'll be shown against your target, and then you're never on the £0 mark either, because you've already got that £500 grant or whatever listed against your target bar. It's really important to plan ahead and look at how your existing assets can help you. It's worth looking at whether you've got any important dates coming up in terms of anniversaries or awareness raising days, or an AGM or existing events that you could tap into to just let extra people know what's going on. There might be current news stories that you could jump on. If there's awareness raised anyway of a particular need and you're addressing that need, then definitely make the most of that opportunity as well. And everyone involved with the organisation, in terms of staff, volunteers, trustees, committees, they should all be at least sharing a social media post and letting people know about your fundraiser, if not utilising their skills and networks in additional ways to really help you spread the word as well. A lot of campaigns can also be linked to fundraisers. So on Local Giving, fundraisers, as in individuals doing fundraising challenges for you, can link their fundraiser pages to an appeal page or a crowdfunder. And so what they're raising is automatically added to the appeal target bar. So that's another way to have another form of income, tapping away at that larger appeal target as well. It's really worth creating yourself a step-by-step plan, as it were. So this could be a template for that, but essentially working out what needs to be done in terms of letting people know, in terms of the prep, in terms of the promotion, in terms of the follow-up with thanking donors, and making a plan with who's the lead person, who's responsible for that, and who are they reporting to, and what needs to be done at each stage as well. It's worth looking at everybody that interacts with the organisation and coming up with a small elevator pitch for each of them. So if you've got your standard paragraph that sums up what your campaign is, and we'll look at what should be in that paragraph as well in a minute, then it's really important then to tailor that a little bit for different people in your networks. You could have your few sentences then that really sum it up in a way that they would understand or be interested in as well. People who know you and your work are more likely to support you. And it's really worth looking at, how do you communicate with them? How did they find out about you? Have they donated to you before? And letting that inform how you communicate with them as well. ADA, some of you might be familiar with this, but it's essentially an acronym for marketing. So it's often used for sales pitches and how to really get someone's attention and benefit from, having an interaction that is as worthwhile as possible. So ADA breaks down as attention, so gaining the audience's focus so they begin to listen to you. Interest, making them intrigued and understand why this is beneficial. Desire, convince them that the offer meets their needs and that they want it. And action, invite people to take the next step. So from a third sector point of view, that would be changed around a little bit. It'd be more like, gain the audience's attention, explain what problem your work addresses and why people should care about it, convince people that your organisation is the solution but needs support, and then invite people to take action. It's really important to demonstrate, to basically get people emotionally invested in the problem first by showing why it matters. If you show them why it matters, and then that with their help there's a solution, then it's a much stronger ask then. If people aren't convinced that there's a problem that needs solving in the first place, it'll be impossible to get them to feel personally responsible for helping it. So it's really a case of winning them over to the problem before you're showing how you solve it, and then talking about your organisation and the action that you want them to take as well. There are some really important questions to ask yourself when you're looking at planning. Looking at how you can promote it in terms of, do you have a Facebook group? Do you have a newsletter, email, all those sorts of things? It's worth looking at who can do extra promotion alongside you as well, and whether there's a hashtag you can give those people to link all your posts together. It's worth looking at local media, which we'll look at in a second as well. And it's definitely worth just having almost an email address list of people that you're keeping updated throughout the campaign, so that they've got new social media posts that they can be posting. So as you're working your way through the time and working your way through to the target, then you can keep everyone involved and help them to help you keep a sense of urgency then as well. Obviously, the clearer you can be, the better. It's really important to make the donor sound like the hero. So Ron just saying, we're going to go off and do this with the money you're giving us. It's, no, because of you, this is happening and this is the outcome, and really making it sound like it's the donor that's saving the day, rather than you as an organization that's saving the day as well. It's really important to have a toolkit ready to share with those people who can help you promote your campaign. So in that, you need to have almost that elevator pitch, those few sentences or paragraph that sum up the campaign. You need to make sure they have copies of your logo. If they can be familiar with case studies, if not have a couple of copies in writing, then great. If they can have a template email to share, and you've got a really strong subject line with that, which is really important because 64% of people open an email because of the subject line. If you've given them example social media posts to share, and also if you've given them, if you've emailed them posters or flyers that they can print, or even given them posters or flyers that you've printed, things like that, can be really useful for them helping to spread the word, particularly if you have a couple of different projects and groups going on, and then each project worker could be distributing something like that amongst their work as well. But most important, you need to make sure everyone knows that link to your crowdfunder page and that you're sharing it regularly on your social media or your website so people can easily get hold of it as well. If you want to be making posters or anything like that as well, or social media posts, if you don't have your own strong images, or even if you do, something like Canva is a really good free resource. You can, for example, choose to make an A4 poster, use their images or upload your own, make really strong visual images that you can then download and use as you want as well. So there are free things out there to help you get those resources ready. Newsletters are well worth still looking at. If someone does a newsletter in your organization, definitely keep them in the loop in terms of when you're going to want to be promoting your crowdfunder. Newsletters reach 100% of your mailing list. They're going to arrive in everyone's email box. So in that sense, they're really useful, whereas not everyone is going to be looking on your Facebook page all the time. So it's definitely something worth considering still. Similarly, local press. On Local Giving, we have a list of newspapers. So under Wales, there's a list of newspapers. Each newspaper name is a link. And when you click on that, it takes you to the part of that newspaper's website where you can submit a press article. So it means if you've gone to the effort of writing a couple of paragraphs, then you could send them to lots of different newspapers at the same time, and then you're more likely to get it in one. So that's a nice quick stop to getting local press articles out. What I would say is that a lot of press don't necessarily let you know when they do an online article of your group. And so the best thing you can do is set up a Google alert. If you don't know how to do that, set up a Google alert, and it's really simple to follow those steps. But essentially, it's worth setting an alert for your organization's name. And then every time your organization's name comes up on the internet, you'll receive an email notification. So basically, you can keep an eye on what's happening without having to do anything. And you can choose that email to come through to you once a week or anything else that you prefer as well, and keep up to date. And then you can be sharing any positive news stories that are coming up about your cause as well. It's worth having engaging content prepped, ready to go. So some strong stories, some strong images, and then schedule them as well. So it's worth just before you start your campaign, sitting down and just scheduling social media to be going out at least every few days, or what you know is appropriate, so that you know that your main message is covered. You still need to be logging in and keeping an eye on responding to people and doing, spontaneous posts as well, but at least your main structure of post is out there. Something like Hootsuite is a free resource where you can type a message, schedule it to go out at an automatic date and time of your choice, and then you can choose for it to go to multiple social media platforms as well, so it saves you time. You really want the donor to progress in their relationship with you, so you need to be attracting them in the first place to your ask. You need to be persuading them to donate. You need to be converting them into donors and supporters. Then afterwards, it's really important that you retain them. That's where thanking is really strong, and you can then deepen that relationship and develop their relationship with you, because you want to guide them on to the next level of involvement be that a newsletter subscriber or a Facebook follower or a fundraiser or a direct debit donor. That is your ideal outcome as well. In terms of thanking donors, you will have anonymous donors along the way, so it's definitely worth doing social media posts to thank your anonymous donors as you're going. The most you can, if you can tailor your thank yous, all the better. Lots of crowdfunding platforms have the means for you to thank donors directly through them. Local Giving has that facility as well. It's really worth being clear, again, where their money's going and providing a call to action. Sometimes that thank you will be your last bit of communication with them. So if you can get them to follow you on social media at the very least, then that's a good outcome there as well. It's always worth getting donors to share that they've donated. And as a donor supports you through Local Giving immediately sends them an email once they've done that to encourage them to share that on social media. So they instantly have the means then to do a Facebook or a Twitter post where they are sharing what it is that they just donated to. And hopefully they're advocating for why you're a great group and why other people should support it. And then people trust things that people they care about have said. So their friends and family are then going to believe that you're a great group because their loved one has just talked about you in that positive light. So it's really important for donors to continue to endorse you to their networks. Just to touch on a couple of examples, this is a North Wales group who wanted to raise enough money for their community band to get to an event. They then made a really strong video of the band itself talking about what it is that they were doing and making it clear why this was, a really good idea. They then actually did offer a light reward for their supporters in terms of they said that if they raise a certain amount, then they would be able to choose for a film to be projected in their community, for everyone to come along for a community viewing, and that would almost be a thank you event as well. And they made a thank you video for donors too, so that the band were saying thank you, and it's just that last really strong bit of sign off from them there as well. That group mainly promoted what they were doing through social media. That's how they got their donors. Whereas this group did a lot of promotion offline as well as a touch online as well, because that's what they were comfortable with. Again, they made a really strong video in terms of they showed the area they wanted to develop. They talked about what they were doing. They were building a new garden in a public park. So they then did things like speak to employees around the park employees around the park whose employees might want to come and enjoy the garden on their lunch break. They put banners up around the park. They got their local councillor to include it in their update. They did local press about it. So lots of offline things alongside some online Facebook promotion as well. And because that was their demographic anyway, they reached their demographic and they did really well in terms of raising money. So it's really important to be familiar with who are my network, who are my audience, how do I reach them, and then reach them successfully with those most suitable methods. These are a couple of suggestions of support that you can find elsewhere to look at beyond this. The links are in the webinar here, and I will send everyone a recording of this as well, so you can easily look them up. But one of them is a Huffington Post article with 5 things to ask yourself before you start a crowdfunding campaign. For example, most crowdfunding campaigns receive 20 to 50% of their funding from family and friends. And so in that sense, you need your immediate network of volunteers and current supporters and staff to be sharing that as well, because a portion of the income will be from those closest to you as well. And then Local Giving also has a resource which is 13 tips for running a successful appeal. And it talks about how you can encourage people to contribute smaller amounts as well, and how important it is to have multiple people involved in fundraising. In that sense, collective ownership is really important. It really is the duty of everyone in the organisation to get behind fundraising. It might be your role to be the person who does the research into fundraising and preps it and does the groundwork and does a lot of the running of it on the day, etc. But really, it's the organisation as a whole should be supporting you to do that, because it's their income and their jobs and their projects that they're running that need funding. So in that sense, at the very least, they should be promoting it on social media alongside you, if not supporting you in more proactive ways as well. be resilient. Every donation you get is, absolutely brilliant. So you should be really proud of that. But also each crowdfunder is an experiment. So you will learn from each one. You can test what works better, and you will get better and better as you go as well. You will also get more data to analyze as you go too. So for example, you'll literally get data in terms of a donor's email addresses should have more people to contact next time if they've chosen to share their contact details with you. You can download donor reports often from the crowdfunder websites. But also you can see things like, what are the trends in your giving? What times a year do people give most? How much did they give? What times of day? And then you can inform how you promote future appeals or crowdfunders using that information, the better. Essentially, the bigger the crowd, the better. So you really need to be able to reach people who are willing to donate or promote it, or invite their networks to support it, and just generally spread the word of your group. So as you do more and more campaigns and crowdfunders, then you're naturally going to be building that network, and it's going to get easier as it goes. Some organizations prefer to do back-to-back campaigns throughout the year. Most prefer to stick to just 2 or 3 because they are cautious of asking their network to support them only a certain amount of times throughout the year. So whatever works best for you, that's absolutely fine. But definitely do at least one crowdfunder campaign every year. It's really worthwhile. As you can see, there are a lot of benefits to doing that crowdfunder, and it's really what people are looking to support now. So if you're not offering that as an option, and you're not doing that really focused fundraising regularly throughout the year, then you're not doing yourself any favors in that sense. You're not giving yourself every opportunity to raise as much money as possible. If you do find that you've got barriers to doing crowdfunding and you need support, there is increasing support out there as well. These are the contact details for Local Giving. If you want to run through any ideas of anything that you've got that you think might work as a crowdfunder, then please do get in touch. Have a look at those resources I mentioned as well. And there are a number of crowdfunding platforms out there, so it's important to find the one that's right for you, and to make sure that you have, it can give you the support that you need as well. Thank you very much for listening.